The outcomes for this first lesson will be revision of the basic knowledge on algebraic fractions, and secondly, the simplification of single-term algebraic fractions. To start with, let's have a look at some algebra basics, in particular the use of brackets. The following information about the use of brackets is most helpful when one works with algebraic expressions in general. Let us consider this particular expression x plus y. This is whether x or y represents a real variable or a real number. We may swap the order. That is because we have the commutative law for addition that applies. Secondly, if we have the expression minus x minus y, in other words, both terms of this particular binomial have a negative in front, we may take this as a common factor, minus 1. We saw this in the first video on basic algebra, and we have left in brackets the expression x plus y. So we may take the negative as a common factor. Thirdly, if we consider x minus y as an expression, we may change this expression to y minus x by taking a negative as a common factor. In other words, to swap the order, when we have a negative between terms, we need to remember to take the minus 1 as a common factor. Number 4, exactly the same. It's just the order of x and y are now different. In number 5, this is an important property that we need to remember. If we have an expression x minus y to the power n, where n is some natural number, positive or negative, in other words an integer, or 0, then whenever this number is even, in other words a square or to the power 4, we can swap the order of the terms inside the bracket without changing anything else. In other words, whether we have x minus y to the power an even number or y minus x to the power an even number, it will be exactly the same expression. This is sometimes useful to remember. And in particular also, if this exponent n is uneven, like 1 or to the power 3 cubed, for example, then we may swap the order inside of the terms inside, but we must remember to compensate for the negative which will result, to put a negative 1 outside the bracket. Now this is some basics about the use of brackets that may be useful to remember. Next, we consider the structure of a number fraction, or a rational number as it is known. A number fraction is a fraction which has the form a divided by b, where a and b are integers, and of course b can never be 0. The top part above the line is referred to as the numerator, and the bottom part below the line is referred to as the denominator of this number fraction. Remember, a and b are integers, any integer, positive or negative, but b is never 0, so the denominator may not be 0. Remember, division by 0 is not allowed in the algebra of real number systems. Examples of number fractions. Let's have a look at a few examples, well known, like a half, minus 3 over 4, 11 over 3, 17 over 213, and many more, infinitely many more. Also remember that negative for a number fraction can either be above the line in the numerator position, or I can decide to put the minus below the line with a 4. It will be exactly the same number fraction, or normally it's just put in front of the number fraction to indicate that it's a negative number fraction. Any integer that we know of is a number fraction. Did you notice that? Well, clearly the integer 3 can be written in number fraction format as 3 divided by 1. So can any other integer, minus 10 for example. And as I've mentioned, the negative may be above or below the line, it doesn't matter. It represents exactly the same number. Even the number 1 as an integer can be written as a number fraction. Now, all the number fractions form the set of so-called rational numbers. Those numbers that can be written in fractional form, as we have indicated. And the symbol for the rational numbers is blackboard bold Q. Capital Q, but a special font called blackboard bold.